In the summer of 1680, across the vast deserts and mesas of the American Southwest, a whisper traveled from village to village. It carried no words, only a small piece of rope with knots tied into it. Each day, the knots were untied, one by one. When the final knot fell, the Spanish colonists who had ruled New Mexico for more than 80 years would face a coordinated uprising unlike anything the continent had ever seen. But how could dozens of independent Pueblo villages, speaking different languages, spread across hundreds of miles, rise up in perfect unity, and what would it cost them to do it? This is the story of the Pueblo Revolt, the war that saved a people. To understand why the Pueblo rose in 1680, we have to go back to the beginning of Spanish rule in the region. In 1598, Juan de Oñate led an expedition north from Mexico into what is now New Mexico. He claimed the land for Spain and quickly established the encomienda system, a forced labor program that demanded tribute in corn, cloth, and labor from every Pueblo household. For decades, the Spanish and their Franciscan missionaries sought not only to control Pueblo labor, but to reshape their very identity. Sacred kivas were destroyed. Religious masks and ceremonial objects were burned. The Kachina dances, central to Pueblo spirituality, were banned outright. Governor Juan Francisco Trevino, ruling in the 1670s, intensified the suppression. In 1675, he ordered the arrest of 47 Pueblo medicine men, accusing them of sorcery. 4 were executed. The rest were whipped, humiliated, and thrown into prison. Among them was a Tewa man from Okai Awinge Pueblo, known to the Spanish as San Juan Pueblo, named Popeye. Popeye endured the lash in the plaza of Santa Fe, under the eyes of Spaniards who laughed at his pain. But the public humiliation did not break him. Instead, it hardened his resolve. Upon his release, secured through Pueblo protests, Popeye left Santa Fe and began a journey that would take him across more than 40 pueblos in the Rio Grande Valley, the Hopi Mesas, and the Zuni lands. He spoke in different tongues. He sat in sacred council chambers. He told of a prophecy that the gods demanded the expulsion of the Spanish and that only a united revolt could save the Pueblo people from cultural extinction. But unity was not easy. Some Pueblos had been rivals for generations. They spoke at least 6 different languages, and they had never before fought as a single force. Popeye's solution was ingenious and dangerous. Runners were sent to each pueblo carrying a length of yucca cord, knotted at intervals. Each day, village leaders untied one knot. When the final knot was undone, every pueblo would rise in unison. The plan was set for August 11th, 1680, but fate intervened. Spanish spies learned of the plot. Popeye, realizing the danger, sent his runners again, ordering the revolt to begin a full day earlier, on August 10th. If the word didn't reach every village in time, the uprising could fail before it began. But it was too late to turn back. The revolt ignites, 8:30 to 11:50. On the morning of August 10th, the Pueblo struck. In Taos, warriors attacked the mission, killing the friars. At Zuni and Acoma, Spaniards were ambushed and cut down. Hopi warriors destroyed churches and drove out the priests. In village after village, Spanish settlers were killed or forced to flee. The revolt swept toward Santa Fe like a sandstorm. Inside the capital, Governor Antonio de Otamin rallied his soldiers and settlers. They barricaded themselves inside the palace of the governors, but the Pueblo warriors cut off their water supply. For days, fighting raged in the streets and the surrounding fields. By August 21st, Otomin had no choice. The survivors, about 2,000 colonists and Christianized natives, abandoned Santa Fe and retreated south along the Camino Real to El Paso. In just 11 days, the Spanish presence in New Mexico had been utterly destroyed. For the first time in nearly a century, the Pueblo people ruled themselves. Pope moved into the governor's palace in Santa Fe and declared a new era. All traces of Spanish influence were to be erased. Baptismal names were abandoned. Christian marriages dissolved. Churches leveled. The old ceremonies returned to the plazas and kivas, yet unity proved elusive. Pope's rule, according to later accounts, became harsh and autocratic. He demanded tributes from villages, punished those who resisted, and insisted on strict adherence to traditional religious law. Some Pueblos began to question whether the cost of unity was too high. Old rivalries resurfaced. Drought and Apache raids added to the strain. Still, the Pueblo held their independence for 12 years, a remarkable achievement unmatched anywhere else in North America. In 1692, a new governor, Diego de Vargas, arrived at the head of a Spanish column. But this time, he did not lead with the sword. Instead, he offered a choice: peace and amnesty in exchange for allegiance to the Spanish crown and the Catholic Church. Many Pueblo leaders, weary from years of drought, famine, and raids, agreed. Vargas re-entered Santa Fe without a battle, but the peace was fragile. In the years that followed, sporadic uprisings flared, including a violent revolt in 1696 that left more than 60 dead. By the early 1700s, Spanish rule was firmly re-established, but it was not the same as before. Pueblo religious practices were largely tolerated, land grants were confirmed, and the forced labor systems were reduced. The Spanish had learned a costly lesson. The Pueblo could not be ruled entirely by force. The Pueblo Revolt stands as the only successful indigenous uprising to expel a European power from North America. It preserved Pueblo languages, traditions, and cultural identity at a time when other indigenous nations were being erased from the map. Pope himself fades from the record after the revolt. He is believed to have died around 1688, but his legacy endures in stone, in song, and in ceremony. In 2005, his statue was placed in the United States Capitol's Statuary Hall, the first to honor a Native American leader. Today, Pueblo dancers still step to the rhythms of their ancestors.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Native Historian. And as always, stay curious.